Yo, what's up? Welcome back to another episode of the SWUS. Continuing on with NFL Week 6. Good one here. Lions are in Dallas. Let's do it.
Welcome to the SWUS. The SWUS. SWUS. Hey, get the SWUS.
All right, like I said, Detroit's on the road in Arlington for this one. Cowboys catching 3. Looks like all the 3.5s are gone. Total sitting at 52 or 52.5, depending on your sports book. Let's take a look at the pie charts, and according to this data, action's coming in on the Lions side. Over 60% of the tickets, over 65% of the money coming in on Detroit. But as I always say, take this data with a grain of salt. So let's get into this matchup. The Lions have struggled against Dallas, to put it delicately. In the last 10 years, these two teams have met 6 times, and the Cowboys are a perfect 6-0 in those matchups. Last time the Lions beat the Cowboys was 2013. That was also the last time Detroit was favored in the game. So the Cowboys have been favorites in this matchup 6 straight times. They've won 6 straight times. Obviously, Detroit favored again in this one. So let's take a look at the Lions offense. Obviously, as I'm sure you saw, Monday Night Football, coming off their strongest performance, they lit Seattle up. A very injured Seahawks defense, but still, it was impressive. They're 6th in the NFL in yards per play, 2nd in success rate, 5th in EPA, 7th in DVOA. Obviously, the big mismatch that jumps out at us here is the Lions' run game against the Cowboys' run defense. Look at the bottom of this graphic. The Lions are 10th in yards per carry, 2nd in success rate per rush, 3rd in rushing EPA, 2nd in rushing DVOA. Here are the Cowboys' defensive numbers against the run, and the bottom of this graphic is pretty red. Yeah, they're 12th in yards per carry allowed, but 29th in success rate, 32nd in run defense EPA, 31st in run defense DVOA. It's been a challenge. I mean, Detroit's offensive line 1st in adjusted line yards, 4th in run blocking grade, 6th in yards before contact. This offensive line is just bulldozing teams in the run game, and the Cowboys' defensive front has just been getting bulldozed. 31st in line yards, 32nd in run defense grade, 27th in yards before contact. Now, something I will say, we have to ask if this Cowboys run defense is improving. No one's really talking about it, but I mean, look at the first 3 games. They allowed over 187 rushing yards per game. 5.7 yards per carry is wild. 44.6 success rate per rush. So the Cowboys run defense looked terrible through the first 3 games, right? Well, look at the last 2 games. Against the Giants and Steelers, granted not the most talented offenses in the world, just 59.5 rushing yards per game allowed in those 2. 2.4 yards per carry, success rate under 40%. I'm not saying, hey, the Cowboys have a good run defense now, but, I mean, we were all talking, and myself included, like this Cowboys run defense was the worst in the NFL, and they couldn't stop anybody. Look at these 2 games. I mean, elite run defensive numbers. 2.4 yards per carry allowed. We certainly can't talk about the Cowboys run defense like it's the worst in the NFL, because the worst run defense in the NFL doesn't allow 59.5 rushing yards per game and 2.4 yards per carry over a 2-game sample. I don't care who it's against. That being said, it definitely is important to take note that it was against the Giants and the Steelers. The Steelers were actually missing 2 starters on their offensive line. Pretty sure they were missing their right guard and right tackle for that game. And not to mention, the Steelers have been struggling to run the ball all year. And the Giants, they mostly run gap concept blocking schemes. The Lions are zone blocking. I mean, they're 9th in frequency, 6th in yards per carry, 6th in success rate. So the Lions are mostly running zone blocking schemes, and they're good at it. So look, I'm not saying we should disregard that the Cowboys shut down the run game from the Steelers and Giants. I think we should take note of that, but that's a little bit different than shutting down this Lions rushing attack. Not only a different scheme, but a much more talented offensive line, much more talented backs. Something I do think we need to at least take a look at, though, who have the Lions played? I mean, in terms of run defense success rate, the Rams are 30th, the Bucs 19th, the Cardinals 28th, the Seahawks 18th. You could make the argument, hey, the Lions rushing numbers look great, but they haven't seen a single decent run defense, and you'd be valid, that your point would be valid in saying that. That being said, I mean, are we calling the Cowboys a decent run defense now because of 2 games? Not really sure. It's open to interpretation, but I do think it's worth taking note that the Lions have been racking up these elite rushing numbers against bad run defenses. That is something we need to be aware of, at least. Now, obviously, we do need to talk about the injuries to the Cowboys defense. That was the lead story going into Sunday Night Football. Not sure if we're getting Micah Parsons back. I mean, he's listed as questionable. I'll have to wait and see. Also, Carson's listed as questionable. Still no DeMarcus Lawrence. Still no Deron Bland. I think his name is Nealand, one of their edge rushers off the bench. He's going to miss this game as well. So the Cowboys are definitely thin in terms of edge rushers. We do have to give them some credit, though, because they were able to pressure Justin Fields last week. Justin Fields was pressured on 36.7% of his dropbacks. That was 13th most in the NFL that week, which is nice to see if you're a Dallas fan. Even missing those pieces, you're still generating a pass rush. That being said, I doubt that's happening against the Lions offensive line. They're 3rd in pressure rate allowed, 6th in pass blocking grade, 6th in adjusted sack rate. This is one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. And I know we had concerns about Jared Goff. Here's the graphic I used in the Seahawks-Lions video. He was struggling throwing the ball from a clean pocket, which was strange because last year he was very good. The last 2 years, he's been very good throwing the ball from a clean pocket. But up until that Seattle game, look at these numbers. He was struggling throwing the ball from a clean pocket. So what happened in that Seattle game? When given a clean pocket, he was a perfect 13 of 13, 225 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks, and a perfect 158.3 passer rating. So he shut us all up. Now, does that mean we should just disregard the first few weeks of the season? No, but I think the whole narrative of Jared Goff struggling from a clean pocket, we can put that to rest because he smoked the Seahawks from a clean pocket on Monday Night Football. So in terms of coverage, what are the Cowboys doing? They're running a lot of zone coverage under Mike Zimmer, 8th in zone frequency, 8th in cover 3 frequency. So what do Jared Goff's splits look like in that department? Well, he's got much better numbers against man coverage. Yards per attempt, 8.39 to 6.2. Passer rating, 117 to 86. Kind of tongue-in-cheek here, though, because he only has 19 dropbacks this year against man coverage. He's got like 120 or something against zone coverage, so large majority of his passing volume has been against zone coverage. That being said, Jared Goff has had some problems against cover 3. Against cover 3 this year, 17th in passer rating, 18th in yards per attempt, 2 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. So the Cowboys coming out, they run a decent amount of cover 3. Jared Goff struggled a little bit against that. I suppose that's something. The problem is, I really don't have a ton of faith in this Cowboys pass defense right now. I mean, last year, nobody could throw the ball in Arlington. I mean, in their home games, no one could beat that pass rush. No one could throw the ball in the Cowboys. This year, in their 2 home games, they got smoked. Just 212.5 passing yards allowed per game because the Saints and Ravens were blowing them out and just didn't need to drop back to pass that much. 13.7 yards per pass attempt allowed is crazy. Almost a 60% success rate per dropback. So the only 2 times we've seen this Cowboys defense at home this year, they got absolutely cooked through the air, an average passer rating of 132.2. Now, the pass defense has looked a little better in the last 2 games, 215.5 yards per game. Success rate, better but not great, 45.8%. Average passer rating, 88.6. I mean, better but not great. The problem is, it was against the Giants and the Steelers, Daniel Jones and Justin Fields. I think we can all agree that Jared Goff and the Lions passing attack don't belong in the same sentence as Daniel Jones and the Giants or Justin Fields and the Steelers in terms of a passing attack. So, look, although it's nice to see the Cowboys' run defense improving and having a couple nice games, this is the Lions, and on paper, I just don't see many ways the Cowboys are making stops here. The Lions should be able to move the ball and score points against this Cowboys defense. But what about on the other side? Let's talk about the Dallas offense. As we were talking about last week, pretty mediocre numbers across the board. Pretty much middle of the pack here, 15th in yards per play. As far as the passing numbers, 13th in yards per pass attempt, 15th in success rate per dropback, 18th in EPA, 20th in passing DVOA. Now, a good sign, if you're a Cowboys fan, Dak Prescott seems to have found his groove a bit ever since he said the jump off or whatever he said. Ever since he made that quote, he has been playing better. Cowboys passing numbers in the first 3 games against the Browns, Saints, and Ravens. 285.7 passing yards per game, solid. 47.4% success rate per dropback, solid. Passer rating and yards per attempt down a little bit. In his last 2 games against the Giants and Steelers, much more efficient throwing the ball. Success rate above 62% per dropback. That's very impressive. 8.3 yards per attempt. Average passer rating 108. So Dak Prescott, even though he did throw that ugly interception in the Steelers game, as a whole, much more efficient throwing the ball. And that plays directly into the weakness of this Lions defense. First of all, the Lions defense as a whole, the numbers don't look that great here. 18th in yards per play, 27th in success rate. Look specifically at their numbers against the pass. 15th in yards per pass attempt, 27th in success rate per dropback, 21st in EPA, 11th in pass defense DVOA. This Lions pass defense is so anchored by the pass rush, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. I mean, the Steelers, even the Cowboys last year, we've seen good defenses anchored by the pass rush. That's not weird. The problem is the Lions pass rush has been so streaky. I mean, sometimes it looks unstoppable, and then other times it's just not a factor. They're actually just 26th in pressure rate so far this year, but we've seen times this season where that Lions pass rush seems to be getting home every drop back. This is not a great matchup because the Cowboys offensive line, not that it's played perfect, but they've done a decent job giving Dak Prescott time. 9th in pressure rate allowed, just 26th in pass blocking grade, 8th in adjusted sack rate. So even though Detroit's pass rush can definitely make some noise, I think the Cowboys offensive line is able to give Dak some time in this one. I think the Cowboys are equipped to neutralize most of the Lions pass rush. Now, what about the coverage matchup? What are we looking at here? Well, the Lions run a lot of man coverage, 37.9%. That's 4th most in the NFL, and that's some bad news when you're playing the Cowboys because this dates back to last year. CeeDee Lamb, 4.33 yards per route run. That's 2nd in the NFL, second only to Justin Jefferson. CeeDee Lamb led the NFL in this category last year. Nobody can cover this guy. If you're running man coverage, you better throw an extra guy on CeeDee Lamb because nobody can cover him in man coverage. Last year, Dak Prescott to CeeDee Lamb was the most efficient quarterback-wide receiver combination when it comes to beating man coverage. So the Lions, a team that does run a lot of man coverage over 37% of the time, they might have to stray away from it here. Now, when it comes to the Cowboys run game, I mean, it's pretty simple here. The Lions have an elite run defense and the Cowboys can't run the ball. I will say the Lions run defense did slip a bit last game. In their first 3 games against the Rams, Bucks, and Cardinals, they allowed just 77 rushing yards per game, 3.7 yards per carry. Success rate down below 34%. Not last week, 2 weeks ago, because they had a bye. Monday Night Football against Seattle, 133 yards rushing, 7 yards per carry, success rate over 47%. Now, something I want to say about these numbers, though, if you watch that game, the Seahawks were running the ball on the Lions, so I'm not saying, oh, these are fraudulent. They did break a couple runs there in the fourth quarter when they were down 2 scores. It was like a 15-point game. The Lions were just sitting back in coverage. So, look, I'm not saying we should take away credit from Seattle. I'm just saying this is a little 7 yards per carry. It wasn't really like that. The Seahawks were making some plays on the ground against the Lions, but this is insane. It wasn't 7 yards per carry. It wasn't really like that. So is Dallas going to be able to run the ball on this Lions defense? I mean, on paper, probably not, but we did see Rico Dowdle make some plays on the ground on Sunday Night Football. This was on the road in Pittsburgh. The Steelers have been playing great defense against the run, by the way, just as good as the Lions run defense. Rico Dowdle, 20 carries, 87 yards, 4.4 yards per carry. So maybe Rico Dowdle kind of establishing himself as RB1. Maybe the Cowboys are going to have a little bit of a run game moving forward. Remember, they have a solid offensive line. It's not crazy to think the Cowboys can start running the ball. So where does that leave us in terms of placing a bet? Well, I like the matchup for both offenses. Personally, I think Detroit is the much better team. I mean, obviously, they're laying 3 on the road. So, I mean, I would like to lay the 3 with Detroit, but I really don't trust that Lions defense at all. In fact, that dominant win over Seattle, Geno Smith drove the ball down the field basically every time he touched it. If it wasn't for that DK Metcalf fumble that the Lions returned to like the 2-yard line, that would have been a 1-score game that came down to the end. I mean, they didn't make any stops in that game. Dak Prescott seems to be finding his groove. I don't want to lay points on the road with a defense I don't trust. So that points me towards the over at 52. And I honestly think that's a good bet because hear me out. If the Lions are going to win and cover this, you're going to give Dak Prescott the ball down points against the Lions secondary. I mean, he's going to score. So even if, like I said earlier, I was leaning towards Lions -3, even if the Lions are going to cover, I still expect Dak Prescott trying to come back to put this game over the total. So I think my favorite bet is probably the over at 52. I'm a little worried that we kind of expected this type of matchup last year when these two teams played. Final score was 21-20. It really didn't look anything like that. So I'm a little worried about that, but I haven't bet this one yet, but I think both offenses should be able to put up points in this game. So give me the over, 52. If you'd like to see all the bets I have open, head over to KyleKirms.com and click on Open Bets. You'll see all mine as well as everyone on the staff here. Also, if you sign up to Sauce Network Plus, it comes with access to the Discord, and you can participate in the weekly betting league. $150 and one of those trophies go to the winner every single week. So if you're interested, head over to the website and hang up. Live shows, college football Saturday, 10 a.m. up to kickoff. NFL Sunday, 11 a.m. up to kickoff. If you're able to make it, would love to see you in the comments. Let's have ourselves a good NFL weekend here. Please remember to bet responsibly. Talk to you in the Discord.